Hi, everyone. Again, this is Caroline with you with the Expat Interviews Thriving Abroad, where I get an opportunity to meet some of the most amazing people who are living, traveling, and just doing awesome things all over the globe. And I am excited today to share my time with you, the Atkins family, Caya and Jamal. Thank you so much for being here and sharing a little bit of your expat adventures. So I know you're from the US and you have a long history of travel, but let's see if we can just get to the real meat of your expat adventures. Traveling from Baltimore,
I am from Baltimore.
all
Yes.
the way from Baltimore, and you have been to Europe and Africa and any other places in between that I didn't mention.
Um, yeah, North America. I've been to Canada. I've been to different islands, but most of my time out of the United States has been in Southern Africa.
So I'm interested in talking with you both as an expat couple. It is a different dynamic when you travel as a couple than, if you're just traveling solo. How has that been for you? How long have you been traveling? How many years total?
Together, or how long have we
Together,
been?
together.
Well, I guess, third year, going on fourth year now.
Yeah, married.
Yeah, we've been married. We've been together a little over 5 years, and we've been married for 3 years. And Kaya moved from the United States to come and live with me in Zambia. So this is the
Okay.
first country that we've moved to together, meaning leaving one
Okay.
place, going together.
Okay. So it's kind of like a love, travel for love experience. Okay, that's really sweet. And you're newlyweds, pretty much, practically. That's
Two and
awesome.
a half years. Yeah, that's pretty new.
So, Kaya, what about you? Did you foresee in the future? Had you thought about maybe living abroad before you met Jamal?
So I actually, when I met Jamal, I was doing global public health work. I was working for the US program that helps to treat and fight HIV and AIDS through our State Department. So I had already started doing extensive international travel through work, and I had traveled some in my personal life, but I really did not know that my life would go in this direction. And so it happened pretty quickly. I started doing that work and traveling to Southern Africa. That's sort of how we met in 2014. And then we were married, and I was living in Zambia in 2017. And it was my first time living for any extensive period of time outside of the DC, Maryland area, really.
Yeah, and you said that you didn't expect it. I think many of us can relate to that. That who would have thought years before that you'd be living in a foreign country, and especially some of the countries that we live in. What was it like living in the motherland in Africa? I know that Jamal, you've lived in many different countries. What was that like for you overall? Your overall experience?
Every country has been different. Um, South Africa is closer to the United States in terms of pace and accessibility to things we're used to having in the US. And Zambia is almost an extreme difference in many of those ways. But Zambia is a lot safer than living in South Africa. So in terms of which one did I take more to, I would say I took more to Zambia because it was more of what I was looking for in a slowdown of pace. Probably not as slow as Zambia is, but it became life. So I got used to it. And a place where I wake up every day and I see people who look like me or look more like me than other places, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I stayed. basketball, I enjoyed the size of basketball in South Africa when I first got there, you know, because it's a more separated place, so you get to travel a little more. But in terms of the overall community absorbing the sport, I would choose Zambia over it because it's less people, but it was more tightly knit and more organic style of basketball. So the work that I was doing with youth, it gave me more space to use basketball as a tool to help the young people because they were also not as immersed in Western culture and wanting to have everything right now. They were more willing to go through the process of allowing basketball to become a tool to change their lives. So those are the two extremes, and then all of the places in between that I've lived: Zimbabwe, Lesotho, Swaziland, or Eswatini now. The places I visited, like Uganda and Tanzania and Malawi and Zanzibar, and so many other countries that I'm not thinking of right now, that all of them had their specific differences and very collective likes, where we are generally taken for exactly who we present ourselves to be. And that's a really good thing because I was allowed to be who I am in most of those places without any real deterrent. So that, I guess, in a very wordy explanation, that's what it is.
And I wanted to mention you're a professional basketball coach. So that was part of what you did, coaching basketball teams throughout Africa. And I'm asking this question because a lot of people are probably wondering what it's like as an African American to live in Africa. We hear so many stories. Sometimes we hear that you just slip right into the culture. Oftentimes we hear that it's a totally different culture. What is your experience overall been like as for both of you, for African Americans leaving the US? Are you considered foreigners when you go to Africa, or are you brothers and sisters? What is your cultural experience like?
Yeah, I'll go first. So, and Jamal can answer a lot more thoroughly because he's lived in Southern Africa so much longer. But my experience, I would say it's both, especially in my work. And I think in the day-to-day, in Zambia, at least, that's where I lived, people are very welcoming. They're happy to see Black people from the United States that have come and want to be a part of their culture. And so that was wonderful. I find that you are American almost anywhere you go. So that's different. People can usually tell, especially with your accent, that you're American. And there are cultural differences. It doesn't mean there's cultural tension. It just means there's differences. And because of the economic differences that you have that are so very stark in many Southern African countries, people assume that because you're American that you have resources. And so sometimes the engagement you have is different than it might be if you were African. But I found it to be very welcoming. And like Jamal said, it is an experience to live in a place where everyone else looks like you, and that the way your skin color is not the distinguishing factor or what predetermines what people think about you. And that's something that is nice to absorb and feel every day.
Would you say that it's an easy expat transition? As far as maybe economically, I mean, I've talked with families that have gone with a minimal amount of financial backing. And I've also talked with families that, started businesses. Do you think that it's an easy transition being a person of color setting up in Africa? I mean, does it make it easier, or do you pretty much have to, would you pretty much have to go as if you were, say, setting up in Europe or Asia or some other country? Does it give you more ease being a person of color to set up shop?
I'll let Jamal really give that answer because he's the one that lived that. But I can just say, living in both Zambia and now living in Switzerland, that when you're an expat, you're an expat. So there are processes and laws and rules and regulations. Or if you're not a citizen of a country, and it doesn't matter if it's an African country or a European country, where there's just things that you can and can't do, or that things you must do in order to do things like own your own business or even own your own car. So I'm sure it's varying degrees, but I wouldn't say that it was necessarily easier or harder. But Jamal can speak to that because he started his own business and made his own way in Zambia. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. I wouldn't say that that it's easier or harder. I guess it just depends on your specific work that you do and how well you immerse yourself in the community. In Zambia, I came there again, a different company, but a similar goal. I was running a life skills program. I was there to work on life skills with youth. So when I first got to Zambia, I was sent there by a company that's owned by brothers from the US, one from Atlanta, one from California, and they were doing youth work in South Africa and met me in South Africa and said, you would be a great help for us in Zambia because you understand what our expectations are of work ethic and timing and getting things done because you're coming from the US, but you've also been living in Southern Africa long enough, a little more than a year at this point, that I was able to adjust and kind of roll with the punches. Like when I first moved to Zambia from South Africa, it was really different. It was, I moved from the States to Durban and I was kind of like, oh, it's like I'm living in Tampa again. And then I moved to Lusaka and I only lived minutes away from the capital, but I lived on a dirt road and, like the road floods regularly. There was not many shops to go to. There were some big grocery stores, but a lot of the things that we're used to weren't there. Fast forward many years later, as Caya moved there with me, there were shops that are, that have things that we wanted to have, something as simple as almond milk. I don't drink regular milk. That wasn't possible to get in Zambia until 2009, I think, 2010, somewhere there. So I didn't eat cereal for almost 10 years. See, that look you had on your face just now, that's
he really likes cereal.
And I eat cereal a lot.
Wow.
It's little things, but overall, starting a business, it was with some other brothers that I started a technology business. I explained, I'm a systems designer. I design audio, video systems, lighting, like biometric entry systems. I used to partner with another American brother there, and we compounded. So we all lived at the company housing for years. So we were running a company, but we didn't have multiple places. It was kind of like the office and home. And we all lived in one place. As our business grew, we were able to expand that place from being a small flat, small apartment to being a kind of big place where we had multiple buildings on the place. And that helped us a great deal. So that's the simple. Right, yes.
I need to excuse myself. If you're still talking when I'm off, I will.
No problem. No problem. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm going to plug my earphones in. I'm going to plug my earphones in because.
Okay, so were you in Zambia the longest? Is that your favorite?
The most, yeah. Out of all of the years I've lived in Zambia, the longest. I've lived. I went South Africa to Zambia, from Zambia to Zimbabwe, back to Zambia, and then from Zambia to Uganda for a short period of time, to Lesotho for a couple of years, to Swaziland for a year. So it has been the epicenter, I would say, of my stay in Southern Africa. But Zambia, by far, has been the most years and the biggest, experiential change.
What is the youth? You worked a lot with the youth. How do they feel about their future, about life, the African youth in general? What is your takeaway from
Um,
being there working with them?
I would say, similar to the United States, there are classes. There's a middle class, there's a lower class, there's a very wealthy class of students in Zambia and other countries. But I will kind of use the lower class and the middle class is the ones I had the most experience with. The middle class kids are similar to the way they are in the US. I think their expectations are a little less, but still they kind of are used to having whatever it is that they need. The young people that grew up in ghettos, shanty towns, places that we would consider below our normal standard of living in the US, I find that most of those students were more genuine in their expression and also in their daily lives. But I think they're similar to kids all around the world that they want to have a few of the creature comforts, but they're driven to find their way. Zambian students, Zimbabwean students, definitely some of the smartest young people I've ever met in my life. Zimbabwean students would put us to shame if you put 50 Zimbabwean students in a room and 50 US students in a room and taught the same curriculum. I'm betting on the Zimbabwean kids every single time.
No kidding.
Every single time.
Wow. That's great to know.
Yeah.
That's great to know.
The system, you don't get a pass for anything in school in Zimbabwe. It was something, and I worked and the reason why I'm saying that is because I worked at the American school, which is called HIS, Harare International School. And I worked at a private school in Zimbabwe while I was there coaching. And you can't tell or not very easily tell a student who goes to a public school and who goes to a private school in Zimbabwe. They're all polite. They all say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. They all will help you if you drop something. You ask a geography question, they can all answer it. It's probably the most balanced educational system that I've seen and the most challenging. I now understand. I had a Zimbabwean friend in university, which when I was in university, I had no clue where Zimbabwe is. I'm very comfortable to say that. I couldn't have pointed it out on the map if you spelled it halfway. But now I know why we thought Y for Rye was a genius. This kid could answer any question you could ask him. And we were like, he must have been the smartest kid on the continent. Like that was just our picture of, because he knew everything or a little bit about everything. And it's just the children in Zimbabwe are taught well. I would say in Zambia, we have a lot of students that are the same. It's a bigger country, more dense city in Lusaka, but the children are the same. They challenge each other positively, highly educated and driven to make their own way. And this is my viewpoint coming into Zambia in 2005, 2006, when I moved there permanently. Now, after being there so many years, I find that high school in Zambia is very different in its range of student, but still very challenging and very preparatory for the young people to take the next steps.
So are you planning, now you're in Switzerland, I see and I hear you speak with a warmth and just a joy talking about Zambia. Are you planning to return?
Oh, absolutely. We own land in Zambia. We
Okay.
we bought some land. Well, I'll be traveling back while we're here in Switzerland. I'll be going back to build our house. And I literally mean build our house. It will be myself and the team of guys who work with me physically building the house. So I'll be going back months at a time to, you know, get foundation, get the walls up, get it at roof level, the different stages of building. So it's absolutely going to be a place that we spend a lot of our time, but it won't be the only place we call home. I don't think there's going to be one place that we call home more than any other, except for when we go home to our parents. To my in-laws is where we stay when we go there. That my mom died this year in 2020. It's been a hard year for all of us.
My sympathies.
Thank you. It's actually the reason why my wife got here before I got here, because my mom just died in September. So it's still really, really fresh.
Of course.
And it's changed my perspective on things, but it's changed my perspective in a way that I know we were prepared and built, myself and my brother, to be exactly who we are. I'm good anywhere I go. I'm a child of God. My mom was a minister, preacher. So she is really who turned me on to traveling to Africa. She had been doing some missionary work in Ghana, Togo, and Benin. And when she came back, she said to me, "This is what you need to do. You need to go. You don't have to stay, but you need to go and see." And, you know, as everybody's planning, I'm just going to go for a little while, see what it's like, you know, be able to share some stories. And it changed my life, for the best.
I think living abroad has really changed all of our lives. You can't live abroad and not feel something different or not be a little different. What would you like us to know about, for someone who's contemplating moving abroad, not maybe just to Africa, but just taking that transition, just like your mom had told you, you know, do it. Any words of advice for someone who wants to make the leap?
Do your research. I think that's a big thing. Everybody needs to do their research for language, lifestyle, you know, density of city, especially with the change in our current world for all of us with COVID. You need to understand where you're going to be moving and what life is like. But be ready to accept what you find. You know, kind of be an empty cup. Let what the experience is going to be, let it be. Don't try to control all of the experience. Now, you have to do some things to control. You need to choose and you need to be prepared. But I think the biggest thing is people need to do their research and don't move yourself across the world until you know that's where you're going. Like, maybe as you found me online and other people have found me online in the last few years, I've done a number of interviews where people ask me these questions, but find somebody whom you could go and stay in that country for 2 weeks, you know, take a month and find a country like Zambia that gives you multiple countries around it where you can see what the country is like before you move yourself to the other side of the world, because it could be really hard to uproot everything that you know and not feel like you have a safety net in terms of, you know, just comfortable places to go. I think that's the thing. Do your research and take your time. So do your research and take your time. If that had to be the last thing to say, yeah, I think that's it. Do your research and take your time.
Very good advice. Very good advice, Jamal. I want to thank you and Caya for spending or just sharing a little bit of your private story with us, your transition. I'm wishing you all the best in your expat life. Many blessings for the new year. And thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you for being patient with my technical challenges. I guess having 4 laptops sometimes can become a problem. And it was today, but I really appreciate you rolling with the punches with me. It helped.
Thank you.